From John Garfield in Body and Soul to Robert De Niro in The Raging Bull, Hollywood has had a decades-long love affair with the sport of boxing. You know, for the last 3.5 decades, I've been the chronicler of the biggest moments in the sport of boxing, but I've also witnessed the love affair between the folks in the world of entertainment and the sweet science, as they told me about their passion for the sport of boxing, what it's meant to them personally, even professionally. And they've told me some great stories about their interaction with the sport. And as I was listening, I thought to myself, this is so fascinating, it should be shared with everyone. And that's really what this series is all about. Peter, on this show, we often use boxing as a metaphor for people's accomplishments and their work in life. But in your case, boxing's not a metaphor. It's an everyday part of your life. The gym we're sitting in, Wildcard West, you own. And boxing's been part of your life since you were a teenager.
Yeah. I think it started when I went to Camp Viking in Cape Cod up in Massachusetts. And we had these mildly sadistic counselors who used to take us out into the woods, and they'd make a ring out of the rope in the trees.
Wow. And
they'd put us in there and they'd bet on us and they'd make us fight each other. And that was my first experience boxing. And then I moved to Los Angeles a little while ago and got to know Mickey Rourke a little bit. And he invited me to a gym he had back then called the Outlaw. And one day I was just in there hitting a heavy bag, and there was a guy sweeping up, and he was kind of watching me, and he walked up to me and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, working on my hook." He's like, "Well, that's not a hook." And I said, "I don't know what that is, but it's not a hook." And I said, "What do you," and he showed me how to throw a hook, and it was Freddie Roach. And back then, Freddie was living at Mickey's gym, really kind of cleaning up the gym. You know, he was just a young guy trying to make a living, and Freddie taught me how to punch a little bit back then. And boxing's always been something that has been very close to my heart, and I think helped me quite a bit just get through my life.
Has boxing influenced your process as a director, actor, and the things you do? I know a friend of mine who was an actor who was in one of your movies actually talked about the fact that you challenge actors to ad-lib, to come up with things, as you did a lot in the Friday Night Lights series. Is that something that you think is attributable to boxing forcing you to think on your feet and create things immediately?
You know, I think that boxing definitely makes you think on your feet and makes you adapt and adjust and lets you stay close to challenging situations.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, you know, one of the biggest ways that boxing has helped me and a lot of the guys that come into this gym, whether they're cops, firemen, hip hop stars, music stars, or pro fighters, and we get all of them. I think that, you know, it's an opportunity for people to explore their relationship with fear, with discomfort, with violence, with pain in a way that's safe but not entirely safe. And I think that you know, making a film, or you know, any entrepreneurial activity, anybody that's involved in any form of business has to be somewhat comfortable with the unknown, somewhat uncomfortable in challenging or scary situations. And boxing, you know, is a great way to, for 3 minutes at a time, explore your personal relationship with discomfort and fear. And that's something that has, you know, been a value to me, and it's, I think, something that's helped me, you know, navigate the insane business of filmmaking.
You said that this gym, you've referred to it as your cathedral, as your church, as your, to keep your sanity. It kind of services that, doesn't it?
You know, I've always found there's no better way to focus than getting in a ring when someone's trying to slug you in the mouth. You know, it makes you kind of eliminate distraction. And I've seen so many times where people come into here to this gym and they get in there to spar, and at first they're really nervous and they're scared, and when those 3 minutes are over, they've got this look of elation, and the dopamine and the cortisol are just pumping through their heads, and they feel really relaxed and they feel clear-headed, and I think that's a wonderful byproduct of getting in the ring and experiencing a safe but challenging level of sparring. You end up feeling almost euphoric when it's over. And that, I think, when I talk about my church, or I'm not the only one, it's our church, but anybody that has gone in that ring and experienced it, man or woman, usually comes out feeling very, very elated. And it's one of the things I love so much about having a boxing gym.
Your career is so intertwined with sports in general, not just boxing. And you like to do movies about that kind of conflict. What is it that draws you to sports as a topic?
Well, first of all, let me say that I'm really looking forward to doing a film with a love story in France with like a boy and a girl.
There you go.
And a bottle of wine. And that's all I want to do.
Something different.
I keep getting pulled into these films.
It's the old Al Pacino line. Just when I think I'm out, they drag me back in.
So now we're joking. I'm getting ready to go do a film on an oil rig about a oil rig that explodes. I think there's 200 men and 1 woman on this oil rig, and I guess I've become the guy that we're doing a film about men either slamming into each other, punching each other, shooting at each other. I read a lot of Robert Bly as a kid. I don't know if you ever read Iron John, but I went to school in Minnesota, and Robert Bly was a famous, men's poet. He writes, really interesting essays and poems and theories on the male psychology and what it means to be a man, basically, and that's something that has always interested me. As a student in college, I played sports, but I also took sociology courses and psychology courses, and the subjects I was always drawn to were cops and robbers and athletes and fighters, and generally guys that were going to go after it. I'm attracted to that. I really do want to make a love story, or I want to make a movie about a group of Victoria's Secret models that rob banks or something, but it never happens.
Perhaps a costume drama set in the late 1800s, something along those lines.
With there are a lot of women and soft music and beaches.
Exactly,
I would
precisely,
love to do it. I guarantee you something will happen and we'll end up blowing things up, and all they'll do is fight.
Precisely. People don't know that you've had a very eclectic background as it relates to sports. You actually worked way back as a production assistant on the Battle of the Network Stars, which had to be a unique experience all the way around.
It was. I think Battle Network Stars was one of the first reality shows.
Yeah, it's true.
I don't think we'd have the Kardashians if we didn't have Battle Network Stars.
True.
But I was a PA, and there was a really beautiful television actress named Tracy Scoggins, who was in her trailer changing wardrobes, and a paparazzi broke into her trailer and got a picture of her changing. And I was just a young PA who was completely infatuated with this beautiful actress. And she ran out screaming, and he ran out, and I chased him down, and I tackled him, and I got his camera, and I presented it to Tracy.
Perfect.
And she gave me a kiss. And that was like a big watershed moment for me.
I would think, yes.
You look for the little moments.
Especially as a production assistant.
And I was a lowly PA, and she put her arm around me and kissed me and told me that I was her hero. And that was, that was like real positive affirmation for me to keep going in this business.
That's great. You're so candid about talking about everything in your career, and so honest about everything. And I thought one of the most fascinating things that you've done is talk about the movie Battleship, which you've had so many great successes, and there's always a little bump in the road, and that one was a little bump in the road for you in your career. But ironically, It's a movie that made, what, $400 million,
Yes.
made more money than it cost to make,
Yes.
and yet, here you are kind of defending it as maybe a disappointment. How does that, did you ever imagine you would be defending a movie that made $400 million?
Well, I mean, I think, you know, one of the things that anybody who's been fortunate enough to be able to make a few movies or
Right.
have a career that, you know, where you get to do it again and again, you can't avoid the shots. People are going to hit you. They're going to hit you as hard as they possibly can. Sometimes they're going to be deserved shots. Sometimes they're going to be, you know, glancing blows. Sometimes they're going to be flush.
Yes.
You try and avoid the knockout
Roll
shots.
with the punches.
You got to roll with it, and that's just the way it goes. And if you want to make big movies, you're going to take some hits. And you know, Battleship, I took a few hits, but it didn't knock me out. And I am proud that the film actually did make some people some money. So.
And you came back from that film with Lone Survivor, which was a movie that was obviously critically acclaimed and also was successful.
No, and we say in the gym, and it's a cliche, but you don't lose a fight by getting knocked down. You lose it by not getting back up, and that's true.
At some point in life, you're going to likely have a film that wins for Best Film and Best Director. But if you had to choose between that or you personally winning a world championship in boxing, which one would you choose?
Me personally? Oh, wow.
Yeah, for you.
I would take Ray Beltran over there getting his title.
Just him, even.
Over me winning an Oscar.
Oh, that's very selfless of you.
Me winning a title, I can't think of much better.
That would be above just about everything.
There's very little. I mean, I love these fighters. Yeah. I loved it. I'd love to win an Oscar. I would love to see, you know, Mike Lee or Ray Beltran or Peter Quillen or, you know, any of the fighters that come through here. I would have loved to have seen Canelo take out Floyd. But, you know, once the fighter comes in here and you get to know him, the love you feel is maybe just that much more than a movie. I mean, it's an incredible feeling when you see what these men go through.
That's great. Peter, thank you very much for visiting with us, and we're going to wait anxiously for the love story as well as the boxing movie.
All right, thanks. I hope that happens. Might be a long wait.
Mario, you have such a passion for the sport of boxing. When did it start? What was the catalyst that made you know you were going to be interested in the sport?
I've been a fan. I mean, ever since I can remember. My grandfather fought a little bit in Mexico. Never really, you know, doing much with it, but I had a love for the sport, and so I just remember as a kid watching fights with him, and then watching them with my dad. And obviously, there's a huge Latino presence in the sport, so there was, you know, guys that look like us on TV and in sport and doing well. So ever since I was a kid, I just was drawn to it, and it was one of the few things that I did with my dad and my grandma. We didn't really sit around and watch basketball games or even football games for that matter, but boxing is one of the few things that's a truly international sport, much like soccer, and easy to understand. The purest form of sport, right? Man on man.
You are not just a fan of the sport. You're not just somebody that passively looks at the sport. You go to the gym, you spar at Freddie's gym many times, at the Wild Card Gym. How did all that come about? How did that start for you?
Well, I wanted to get into boxing when I was really young, but then I got into the entertainment industry really young at the same time. So, you know, it's not the best thing for your face. Let's just say that right at the start. So it was strongly discouraged, let's say. But I still was always gravitated towards individual sports because of my schedule. I always had outside activities. I was always like dancing or doing theater or doing something. And team sports, you had to be there. So I grew up wrestling, long story short, since a little kid, and it's an individual sport, obviously, and all you needed to do was be the guy in your weight class. So, and I loved it, and I took to it like that, and all my uncles wrestled, and everybody wrestled. So when I got out of high school, actually I had opportunities to wrestle in college as well, but I was fortunate enough to keep working, and I still needed an outlet to do that. And it's not like you can pick up wrestling. This is before MMA started getting really popular, right? Because I might have gone which by the way I like and I respect, being a former wrestler, but I was doing a show at Sunset Gower Studios in Hollywood, which is a few blocks from Santa Monica and Vine, where Wildcard is located. I heard about the gym. I didn't know if anybody could just go up in there, and it was like $5 a day to work out, so I just sort of rolled in and asked what was going on, and they said, hey, you want to train? You could train. And I love the fact that you could be hitting the bag next to a world champion and a guy that just got out of the joint, and and I love that about it. So I mean, I love the sense of community, the colorful characters involved in the sport, and then I was just automatically hooked. That was the first time I ever really put on a pair of gloves, and then I just took to it.
When I was a youngster, I got into amateur boxing. My dad had passed away, and I felt like I had something to prove, emotionally, psychologically. I think there was something roaming around in my head. Did anything psychologically enter into the idea of you boxing?
I just think it takes a certain kind of individual to really get in there. You're completely vulnerable. There's no one to blame other than yourself. All the glory is all yourself. Like I said, I've always liked individual type sports because it's all on your own time, and all you got to do is beat the guy in front of you. And it's just very therapeutic for me, whether I'm sparring or getting into the workout. It takes the edge off. I mean, I deal with enough stress and pressure in my everyday life that it is just, I just like release, have a big, take a big deep breath, and no matter what happens, it's not gonna be that bad. And I go home, and my wife's nothing she says is really going to bother me as much, and the kids, and then nothing. It takes a nice edge off to where I can complements all the other aspects of my life.
Some people probably are surprised. They'll see this and they'll say, I had no idea that Mario Lopez was that big a boxing fan, or that he stepped in the ring. You are the ultimate in terms of a likable personality on television. You reach through the screen and people like you, and that's a quality that is very hard to define. How does that juxtapose in people's minds to the idea of you being in the ring and loving this very violent sport?
Yeah, it's funny.
Do you ever think about it?
Yeah, well, people always tell me all the time, like, why do you like to do that? Why aren't you like playing golf or doing like the NBA Entertainment League? And I'm like, I've never. It's just not me. I just feel it's like I step in there and I feel like someone else. But I do recognize that it is a bit of a contrast.
In addition to all the other involvement in boxing you've become a boxing commentator. You've done a number of shows. You and I have done a few shows together. What's your approach, your philosophy to that?
First, it's a total treat for me. I'm like a kid there, being able to do that with with someone like yourself, and with our mutual friend Steve Kim.
Yes.
I remember when I first wanted to tackle something like that. He sat down and worked with me, and we wanted to. He was gracious enough with his time to sort of help me out, and I realized that. Because obviously I'm comfortable in front of the camera and when talking with folks, you're essentially doing the same thing. You're just calling it as you see it, and being familiar with the sport and having gotten in there to a degree, right?
Sure.
Myself, then I can kind of come from a place of, okay, I see the situation or predicament for what it is and lend something to it, as opposed to maybe someone who's never even closed a fist.
I take that moment before the fight's going to start, and I kind of take a sigh, and I look around and I say, wow, this is pretty impressive. What are a couple of the fights where you did that as either a spectator or on hand even for the broadcast? I try
to take that moment myself too. And I just remember, broadcast-wise, I think I just, the last two Marquez Pacquiao fights, I was at all of them but one. But then when you start hearing the Mexican national anthem and the way they get so loud, and then with the Filipino contingency, and you just have that sort of World Cup international sort of feel, and it's really cool, the energy in there, and then obviously with those guys and their storied rivalry, that's just one that just came to mind.
Yeah, sure.
And then obviously Vegas, you have the Mecca fight capital there, but there's been some great fights here in LA too, and I remember at the Home Depot Center from Vasquez Marquez fights were some great fights here, and gosh, I can't. There's so many. They're also. I try if they're in town, I'm pretty much there unless I'm out of town working. And even in Vegas, if I'm not working, I'm pretty much there.
you have this, in this mythical world, you have a chance to either win the Academy Award or be a world champion in boxing. Which one is Mario Lopez going to choose?
A hypothetical world?
Hypothetical world, you know, you still have a shot at one, and maybe the other, I don't know. It depends on how good your boxing is turning out.
Well, if we're in a hypothetical situation, there's no doubt about it. You're gonna have a title. There's Academy Award winners every year, and tons of them. Not too many world champions. We're speaking of hypothetical.
I had a feeling you might go for that one.
Yeah,
that was just a guess on my part.
So yeah, no, no question.
All right. What's boxing taught you about yourself? Doing it, being involved in it, being around the fighters. Has it taught you anything about yourself? Have you learned anything about yourself personally?
Well, I learned as you get older, you have to adjust your style. Becoming much more of a counterpuncher now. And so, but you know that there just in boxing, like just in life too, there are no shortcuts. You can't just pick it up and get in there and try to fake it.
It applies to everything in life, your
career,
exactly. Everything, right?
Yeah, you can't just BS your way there. It's all about the discipline, the hard work, and the commitment, and the work you put into it. Hopefully is what you get out of it. But and just like in life, and I like putting myself in positions where you're dealing with certain levels of vulnerability and being a little naked there, you know. And it's scary, but it's exhilarating too.
Yeah.
I remember I sparred with a guy the other day. He was 64 years old. He's a professor at CSUN. And he just fought, and he was getting ready for the next fight. I'm like, wow, that guy's my hero. He's 64. You know, I don't know if my wife's going to like it, but why not? Just keep me in shape. So
that's great. Yeah. Well, you never take any shortcuts in life, and thank you very much for visiting with us.
You got it. Thanks for having me on.
It's a delight to have you here.
It was a lot of fun.